Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. So today we are going to talk about a basic project on Ansible which is basically dedicated for beginners. Okay, so in this video we are going to install AWS CLI on our remote server, and then after that we are going to download a file from our S3 bucket, okay, to check whether our AWS is working fine or not. Okay, so in this particular video we are going to make use of Ansible Vault. So I hope all of you are aware of it, and if you are not aware, I am going to explain this particular concept here in short. Okay, so basically Ansible Vault is used to secure sensitive data present in your Ansible playbooks. They can be either in the vars, that is variables folder, or it can be either in your roles as well, right? So anywhere within Ansible, if there is a sensitive data, it needs to be secured. You can't directly add these values anywhere on your GitHub repository. It is risky as the attackers can easily access it, right? So in order to secure such sensitive data, we make use of Ansible Vault. Okay, so in this video we are going to store our AWS credentials in this Ansible Vault. Okay, and slowly you will learn how we are going to use this vault while trying to implement or execute those playbooks. Okay, so let's try to understand now, like, how are we actually going to implement this project. So I would also like to tell you that this project is not the production level project, but this project will give you a good idea of how things actually work. Okay, so if you want the production level project, you can let me know in the comment section. If I get more than 10 such comments, I can definitely work on it and bring it for all of you. Okay, so that's all about it. So let's try to understand what we are going to implement in this project and how we are going to do it. Okay, so basically we are going to consider two different servers. Okay, so this is your server 1 and this is your server 2. So your server 1 is where you are going to install your Ansible. Okay, this is your main kind of a server, and this another one will be your remote server where you want to install AWS CLI and also the S3 file you want to download it, right? So this is what is the scenario, which is very basic and very simple. You have two servers. One is where you will have your Ansible, the other is where you will have to you want to install all of these things with the help of Ansible, right? So I guess all of you already know that we don't need to install Ansible on this particular server. We only need it over here. That's it. Okay. So yeah. So this was all about the intro part. Okay. Now let's try to understand how we are going to do it. So first thing that we need to do is achieve SSH connection. Without SSH connection, Ansible won't be able to talk to your remote server. So in order to enable your Ansible server to talk to your remote server, we are going to establish this SSH connection. So I hope that most of you already know how to do this, but I would still like to mention it here. So what you need to do is go to your Ansible server. Over here, you need to create keys or SSH keys. Okay, so you will be getting two kinds of keys. One is private, the other is public. So you don't usually share private keys. Remember this, never ever share your private keys. So whatever you will be sharing will be your public key, only public key. Okay, so you will be taking the content of this public key and go to the remote server and in here you will go to .ssh folder. Also these keys will also be within the .ssh folder only. Okay, you will go to this folder. Within that you have this authorized keys file, right? So within this you will be adding the content of the public key, right? So within this particular file you will be adding the content as it is without any manipulation in the data. Okay, so once you have done this, go to the Ansible server and check if you are able to SSH. So over here you can SSH using the IP address directly. Since we will be making use of the servers with the same users, since we are going to make use of Ubuntu, both of them will be having Ubuntu users, right? So you don't need to mention Ubuntu over here, but remember that if there are servers with different kind of users, then in that case you need to mention the users as well. Okay, so this is what you will be running on your Ansible server and check whether you are able to connect to your remote server. If yes, then everything will be fine. Okay, you will be ready for the further steps, right? So this was about SSH connection. So let's go and practically implement it. Okay, so let's go and create our two different servers. So I'll go over here on my AWS console and launch the instances. So I need two servers, so the count will be 2 over here. The OS will be Ubuntu. Okay, I will keep the instance type as T2 micro and yeah, any key pair, a pre-existing key pair will also do. You don't need to always create a new pair, and you don't need key pair here basically, so not a problem. Okay, so launch the instance and you will be having two instances which are in the initializing state. So let me rename these. So one among them will be my Ansible server. Okay, and the other one will be the remote server. So let's wait for it to be 2 by 2 checks passed. Okay, Now we can see that both of these instances are 2 by 2 checks passed. So let's first log in to our Ansible server, because this is where we are going to create our SSH key. Okay, so let's execute this command, that is ssh keygen -trsa. Okay, now this is going to create two different keys for us, one that is a private key as well as public key. So let's check how it does that. So you can enter the file name if you want. I won't be changing the file name, I would go with the default one. Also for the passphrase, I won't be entering anything, and just enter. Okay, so now if I go to cd.ssh, okay, and now if I check, you can see these two files have been created. Okay, so among these two, this one is my private key and this one with the .pub extension is my public key. So what I am going to do is, let me just cat it. Okay, so you get this. So simply what you need to do is just copy the content as it is. Okay, and now once you are done with this, just go to the remote server. Now connect to your another instance. Okay, now if you do ls-la, you get this .ssh folder over here. Within this, just go inside it and you can do ll, and you can see that you don't have those public and private keys since you have not done ssh keygen over here, right? So you only have these authorized keys. So what you need to do is you just need to paste that previously copied content into this particular file. So I'll just go inside authorized keys. Okay, and I'm just going to paste the content over here. Okay, once done, just save it using WQ and you are ready to go. Okay, now let's get the IP for our remote server and try to access it from here, from our Ansible instance. Okay, and what I'll do is SSH and paste the IP. Yes, I'm sure to connect, and here we go. You can check the IP. So this is the private IP of our remote server. So if you go and you check this private IP, it looks the same. Okay, so we could successfully connect to this particular remote server from our Ansible. So just exit it, and now we have established the SSH connection. Okay, and now we are ready to proceed further to install Ansible. Okay, now this one is our Ansible instance. So whichever is your main instance, you just need to install Ansible over there. So since we don't have Ansible already installed, you just need to execute this command. But before that, just do sudo apt update. It will keep your cache updated with the recent or the latest packages, and because of which it will be easy for you to install Ansible as well. Okay, Okay, so the update has been completed. So let's try to install Ansible. Okay, I think the Ansible has been installed successfully. So let's try to check the version of Ansible, and here we go. So this is the version that we are going to actually work on. Okay, so this is 2.16.3. Fine. Now after this we are going to create inventory. So if you have already learnt about Ansible, you might be knowing that what is an inventory. So basically inventory is nothing but the place where you store the host's IP. Okay, so the remote server's IP basically. Okay, so I will be just creating it over here with the name inventory itself. Okay, okay, and let me paste the instance IP. So I'll be pasting the public IP over here. Paste. Okay, now let me get it. Okay, perfect. So you can see this is the content of my file. Okay, so what we have done is we have added the remote server IP over here. Now why do we do this? Ansible should know like in which server it has to make the changes. So in order to let Ansible know this, we make use of inventory, and over here this is the name for the IP, okay, that we have added. So it can be for a group of servers as well, and it can be there for a single server as well, the name. Okay, so this was for the web servers, and this is the IP address that we have added inside our inventory file. So now we are done with the inventory part. Now let's try to understand something related to Vault as well. Okay, so basically in case of Vault, the main purpose of Vault is to secure the sensitive information. So how can this be secured? Let us try to compare this with a GPay. Okay, so whenever you set up this GPay for the very first time on your mobile phone, then in that case it asks you to set up the PIN for yourself, right? So with this PIN you can check the bank details, right? How much what all transactions have been done, or any kind of payment that you want to do, or checking the bank balance. All of these can be done only by entering this particular PIN, right? So this PIN is basically used to retrieve the information, right? Similarly, in case of Vault, we have the concept of Vault password. So this password is basically used to encrypt the information that we are passing into the vault. So this information is encrypted, okay, with the help of this particular password, right? And if we want to decrypt it, we again need to pass the password again, okay? So that is why vault password is important in order to secure your sensitive information. Simple. So in our case, what we are going to do is we are going to store this vault password on our secrets manager. Because we can't store this on our GitHub account, right? Because it would be risky. Because anyone can access it and leak the information, which can again result in a threat, right? So in order to avoid this, we have decided to make use of secrets manager to store our vault password. Okay, so over here what we are going to do is we are going to store our vault password in our secrets manager. Vault password. Okay, so this is in our secrets manager. But if we want to access, now this is, let me use another color for this. Okay, so this is my server, my Ansible server. So I will be creating my playbook on this particular server. So if I want to make use of Vault to store the sensitive information for this playbook, I will need the Vault password, isn't it? So what I will be doing is I will be assigning a role to this particular EC2 instance, which will allow the secrets manager the permission. It will provide us the permission basically to read and write to the secrets manager. So we need to create this particular we need to create a role and then assign this particular permission in order to access this particular secrets manager, right? And we are going to retrieve it on our EC2 instance. So we won't be storing it anywhere. It will be stored only in the secrets manager safely. So whenever we need it, we are going to just fetch it on our server, use it, and that's it. Okay, so let's go and try to implement this part as well. So this is my server. Let me check. Okay, now let me check the role that has been assigned to this. So if I go inside the security, I can see the IAM role. So over here I can see there's no role, right? So what I'll have to do is I'll have to create a new role, okay, and provide that permission to it. Okay, so let me go to IAM and go to roles. Okay, just go to create a role, and this role is basically for our EC2 instance, so I will be just keeping it as EC2 and next. And over here we will be considering the secrets manager read and write permission. Okay, so this is the only permission that we need as of now, and the role name that I would like to mention it over here is Ansible server role for secrets manager access. Okay, so this is all about what I wanted to mention and create role. And you can see that this role has been created over here. Now let's go to our Ansible server. Okay, and over here, sorry, I was checking for the remote server, but we will need to add that role to our Ansible server, because whatever the playbooks we are going to create those on our Ansible server and not on our remote server. Okay, so just select it, go to actions, and in here you can go to the security and modify IAM role. Over here you will be able to see all possible options. Just select the one that you have created now and update the IAM role. Cool. So now your server is ready to fetch the secrets manager file. Okay, so let me show you. So this is basically the secrets manager dashboard. Go to the secrets, and this is the secret name that we have given to our secret, that is vault password, and within this we have our value already stored. I won't be retrieving it because since it is confidential, I won't be retrieving it. Okay, so there is a command that we'll have to use. So basically again we'll have to install AWS here as well, because AWS is not installed over here. In Ubuntu we don't get AWS already installed. In Amazon Linux type of instances you get AWS CLI already installed. So if I do AWS, I am not going to get that, right? So also don't go for this because it won't work here. We need to follow proper steps. So just go and search for AWS CLI install on Ubuntu. Okay, and just go to this documentation over here. And go for Linux. Okay, so these are the steps that you just need to implement. So for this you also need to have curl as well as unzip already installed on your machine. I hope these are installed since I have done sudo update, but not sure. Let's check. Let me copy this. It seems I've already copied it earlier. I'll just copy this. And you can see this zip file has been created over here. The next step is to unzip this file. Unzip is not installed, so let's go for sudo apt install unzip. Okay, it got installed. Now we can execute this command. Okay, it's done. So the files have been unzipped. Now let's try to install it using this command. Okay, so you can now run AWS --version, and you can see that it has been installed, and this is the AWS CLI version that we are going to use. Okay, now there is a command in order to retrieve the value and store it in any file locally on our system. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll just execute it. So AWS secrets manager, okay, followed by get secret value. Okay, then we need to pass the secret hyphen id. Okay, so what is the id? The secret id is vault password, so this is what we call it as the id. Okay, just paste it over here. Oh my god, it has to have been pasted over here, but it's going down. Okay, so this is about it. Now just this won't help, because we want the exact string. We also not also the string, we also need to mention the region as well, followed by the since it is a secret string, right, we are going to use it, and then after that output text. Since it will be in the text format, you can just add it to vault.pass file. Okay, and that's it. So the value of this particular vault password secret has been fetched onto our instance, and you can see the file vault.pass has been created over here. Okay, so we are done with the inventory, we are done with the vault password file. Now the next important thing that we need to do is we need to create access keys as well as secret keys. Now why do we need to do that? Let's go and I'll explain it on our whiteboard. Okay, so basically, if you consider this is your Ansible server and this one is your remote server. Now what we want to do is we want to ask the remote server to download the file somewhere uploaded on S3 bucket, right? So for that, this server must have AWS installed. Not just installed, it also must have AWS configured. Configured in the sense, we execute this command AWS configure and we pass the access keys plus secret access keys in order to authenticate and then try to establish the connection with the S3. If the user that you are using for configuring has got the relevant permission to access the S3 bucket. Okay, let's simplify it a bit. Okay, now let's say, now the question that must be in your mind currently is that on the Ansible server, we installed AWS, but we didn't configure AWS with the required access keys as well as secret access keys. We didn't do this. What we did is we added the role, right? Similarly, you can do for the remote server as well. But in your case, this remote server was an AWS instance. But in other cases, it might not be an AWS instance. Then in that case, you will have to go for AWS configure option. Okay. So for the remote server, first step we are going to do is to install AWS. Second thing is to configure AWS, right? And for that configuration we need access keys as well as secret access keys. And these access keys belong to a user. So we need to check the permissions that are being assigned to this particular user, and then only we will be able to fetch the data or the file from S3 bucket. Okay, so let's go to the IAM and check which user we are considering, what are the permissions associated with it, and then we can create the access key as well as secret access keys and then use them in our project. Okay, so this is the IAM. Let's go to the users. So we already have one user over here, and let's check the permissions. So the access over here is the administrator access. So if anyone has got an administrator access, the person can do anything. It can fetch any service using this particular permission of administrator access. So you don't need to bother about it. And even if you don't want to use administrator access, you can just remove this. Okay, go to add permissions and just go to the admin group, go to the permissions, and you can just change the permissions. You can just add the relevant attach policies. So you can go for the S3 related, like S3 full access will also do to us, right? So just do S3 full access and you are done. You can remove this one, administrator access, if you don't want. Okay, so this is the only permission policy that will be attached to your admin group and also the user. So basically there is a group. Within group you have multiple users. So admin group has got this particular user, okay, and it has got, okay, so I'll have to add the permissions over here. Let me go for the group. So since there's no group over here, I'll just add it to this particular group. Okay, so it has got this permission of S3 full access now. Okay, now my user has got the relevant permission. Okay, now I can go to the security credentials, create the access key, go to the command line interface, since that's what I need, right? And then the description is, let's say, credentials for user, okay, and create access key. So you need to download this particular CSV file, okay, for the safer side, and you can just copy these values into your vaults, because this is a sensitive data. It is not expected for you to share this data with anyone. Okay, so in order to make it available for our remote user but not available to the people who are viewing your Git, we won't be storing these access keys as well as secret access keys on our Git repositories. Okay, it is not at all recommended. So for that we have this Ansible Vault, with the help of which we are going to store these sensitive data. Okay, so let's go and create a vault, okay, where we are going to add these values to it. Okay, so what I'll do is, there is a command. Okay, so basically Ansible hyphen vault. So once you install Ansible, you don't need to worry about Ansible Vault, Ansible Playbook and all other things. Okay, it will be included in the same package, so you don't need to worry about it. So Ansible hyphen vault. Okay, so with the Ansible Vault we are going to create the file. Okay, let's say AWS credentials dot YAML. So basically it will be in the form of YAML file. So we'll be generally giving the extension as .yml. Okay, so this is about it, and then we are going to pass the vault password over here. Okay, vault password file, and the file name is vault.pass. Now when I enter, it will give me a file to enter all the details, all the sensitive data. Okay, I'm just going to enter. Yes, now it should work fine. Okay, just escape, save this one, and you are ready to go. You can see that this file has been created, but the content won't be the same. Why? Because it will be in the encrypted format. I'll show you. See, so this is the encrypted format and not the human readable format. So because of which your credentials are safe, right? So this is how you create your vault. Okay, the Ansible vault. Now you are ready with the inventory, you are ready with the vault file, you are ready with the password file as well. Okay, now it's time to create a playbook for yourself. Okay, so basically we will be making use of a VS code in order to write our playbook. Okay, so let's go and create a new file. Okay, let's consider as a text file, and we'll be starting with the 3 hyphens. Okay, I hope it's visible to all of you. And the first thing that we'll be mentioning in the playbook is the name. So we will be using this playbook to install AWS and download S3 file. Okay, so basically we will be installing AWS CLI. Okay, not just AWS, of course, it's a cloud. Okay, so the next thing that we'll be mentioning over here is the hosts. Okay, so the hosts that we are considering will be web servers. You must have noticed that within the inventory we had named the IPs of the remote server as web servers, right? So for that reason we need to mention the hosts as web servers, which will be pointing to the remote server. Okay, then after that we have become. So basically become is for executing the stuff as a sudo. Okay. So for the privileges of root, we generally make use of sudo, right? So similarly in the playbook, we make use of become in order to run the commands as a sudo user. Okay. The next important thing over here is that we want to consider AWS credentials. So over here you can see we have got this particular file which contains access key as well as secret access key, right? So these two keys are present within this particular file but in an encrypted format, right? So we need to tell this to our playbook as well so that it can refer it whenever it requires, right? So for that we need to mention it as where's files. Okay, and then we will be mentioning it to be AWS credentials.yml. Okay, so this is for our entire playbook, not just for a particular task. So within playbooks we have multiple tasks. Okay, so one by one we'll come to that. Okay, so we are also going to define variables. So for that in Ansible we have got vars. Okay, so the first thing that I would like to mention it over here as AP South 1 is the region which we want to consider. Then the S3 bucket. So I will try to show you the S3 bucket that we are going to use. So basically this is the S3 bucket, that is learning guide. Okay, and within this we have this text file. Okay, so this is nothing but just for the information purpose. This file was created. Okay, but we are using it for our demo to download it. Okay, so this is the name of our S3 bucket. So I'll just copy this as it is and paste it here. Okay, the next thing that we need to mention is S3 object, that is the name of the file, that is architecture.txt, right? The next thing is the destination path. So let's consider it to be home Ubuntu. Okay, so these are the variables which we will be making use of. Okay, and lastly, the most important thing is tasks. So basically different execution commands can be considered as tasks. Okay, so the first task that we need to execute is to install AWS CLI. But before installing the AWS CLI, you must have observed that these three are the important steps, right? So in order to execute this, we need to have this curl as well as unzip commands already installed, right? So for that we will be first installing the dependencies, that is curl as well as unzip. So for that I'll mention install dependencies. Cool. Now we are going to install them using apt. Apt is a package manager, right, which we are going to use to install unzip as well as curl commands, right? And also the state is something that you need to mention. So we want to install it, not remove it, right? So whenever you want to remove it, you can mention absent over here. But if you want to install it, then you can mention present over here. Okay, and you will be also updating the cache. So yes. Okay, so this was for our dependencies. We are done with it, right? Now the next important step is to install AWS CLI. For that, we need to consider these steps, right? So for these steps, the first step is to curl, right? Download AWS CLI. Okay, so we are going to first download it. So for downloading, we have this get URL. Okay, and within this we have this URL. So what is the URL? The URL is something which we have already written in over here. Okay, I will be just copying it, just the URL. Okay, so you got the URL. Now you want to paste it somewhere, right? You want to download it somewhere. So the destination is something that you will have to mention. So the destination is home Ubuntu, right? And what is the this thing? AWS. This is the name of the file. So we want our file to be of this name, right? Just paste it over here. Cool. And again, you want to update the cache as well. Sorry, no need to update the cache. Just you can mention the mode. Okay, so you want this particular zip file with the permissions 0644. It is optional. You can even avoid this or ignore this, but it would be good if you have these permissions. Okay, so that we can easily unarchive this particular zip file. Okay, so the first thing was done. That was being done previously using curl command. Now we are using it using now we are executing it using URL, get URL. Okay, but this is using Ansible, but internally it is working with curl only. Okay, that's fine. Now let's try to unzip it. Unzip AWS CLI. Okay, now you need to unarchive this. For, for unarchiving, that is unzipping, you need source, destination, and remote underscore src. Okay, so this is obviously yes because it is a remote source, right? So the source over here is this particular file. I will be just copying this particular file as it is, and the destination will be slash home slash Ubuntu itself because I want to um, unzip it in the same folder. Okay, so that's all about it. Cool. Now we are done with the unzipping. Now the next step that we need to do is to execute this particular command. Simple. So simply what we need to do is install AWS CLI, right? And for that we have to execute a command. You can directly do it sudo dot slash AWS slash install. You can also do it like that, okay? And uh, instead of sudo also, you can ignore the sudo and instead you can add become yes over here, okay? Also you can add arguments. Since you want this to be created in user local bin AWS. So basically this should be installed at this particular location. So for that we are passing this particular code over here, okay? So we are done with the installation of AWS now. Cool. The next important step is to download the S3 file, right? So in order to download that S3 file, you will need those AWS access keys as well as secret access keys, right? And those secret access keys are present within this particular file. Now how can we access it? So you don't have to do anything. You just need to pass them in the curly braces. So we'll get to it. Till then, let's type the task as download file from S3. Cool. So we will be executing a command, right? So the command is like AWS S3 CP S3. So this will be our source. So that will be again mentioned within the curly braces. So variables are generally mentioned in the curly braces. So this is the S3 bucket name, right? So it should be mentioned over here, okay? Then we have the file name, which is again in the curly braces S3 object, okay? And then copy it to the destination file, okay? So destination path is somewhere within the slash home slash Ubuntu. Yeah, we want to download it in the same location. You can also download it in any other location, whichever you prefer. But over here, I am just for the example purpose, I am considering this to be as slash home slash Ubuntu. Okay. It is not a compulsion to use the same path. Then we have environment. Okay. And within this we will be passing three main things which we use to configure our AWS. So I'll show you something, okay? If I do AWS configure, it asks me for the AWS access key ID, okay? So this is something that is required. So I'll pass it over here, access key ID, and from where I'll get it? I'll get it from the folder above, from this particular file, sorry, not folder. From this particular file, that is aws credentials.yaml, I'm going to get the value of this particular okay. So over here it will be access key, okay. Then we have AWS, yeah, let's go to the yeah, this thing, okay. can see it will ask for the secret access key. Similarly, I have to pass it from here as well. Secret access key ID. Okay. Then within the curly braces, I will be passing the secret access key. So you have to use the same variable that you had used while defining this particular vault file. Okay, it should be of the same, everything should be same. The case, the variable should be exactly the same. That's all. And the next thing is about the region. So you also need to pass the AWS default region. So AWS default region, and the region is something that we have not passed in the AWS credentials.yaml file. So we have passed it over here, right? So I will be just using it from here. Okay. Okay. So this is all about the playbook that we need. Okay. So this contains everything. So basically what we did is here we defined everything for our entire playbook. Then we defined the variables. After variables, we one by one defined the tasks. So the first one was to install the dependencies. Second thing was to download the AWS zip file. Once the zip file was downloaded, you then unarchived it. After unarchiving it, we kind of executed it for the installation purpose. And lastly, we downloaded the file because now we have AWS. With the help of this installed AWS, we can execute this particular command. And with the help of these AWS credentials, we were able to get the desired permissions to access the S3 bucket. Okay, so I hope this should work now. Okay, let me just copy this entire file, and I can just create the playbook.yml, enter, and I'm going to paste it over here. Okay, so okay, fine. Now we have all the desired things that we need to implement the changes on our remote server. So the first thing is we have this vault file, we have the inventory, we have the vault password file, we also have the playbook. Okay, Ansible playbook, we will be passing the inventory to it. Ansible playbook will be passing the inventory to it. Cool. Then after that, we will be passing the playbook.yaml, followed by we also need to pass the vault password file because it will require it to decrypt it whenever it is executing the playbook, right? So this is all about it, and let's try to execute it. Yes guys, so there was a small mistake. Okay, so it was not the secret access key ID, but it was just the secret access key. Okay, Now it should work. Yes. So this is completed. Now let's go to our remote server. Okay. And let us check at this particular destination, that is slash home slash Ubuntu. Okay. You can see the architecture.txt file has been downloaded, right? You also have got this AWS uh, zip file where you have installed AWS, so you can also check whether AWS was installed for you, AWS CLI I mean. So you can see that it was also installed. Okay. So in this way we implemented a small project for the ones who are starting with Ansible Vault, who have no idea how Vault works and how we actually implement it while making changes to our remote server. So I hope this video was very much helpful to all of you. Please let me know in the comment section if you need more such videos so that I can accordingly prepare and just post them. So thank you so much for watching the complete video till now and wish you all the best. Thank you so much.